It's 11:59 at Radio Free America, and this is Uncle Sam with music and the truth until dawn. Right now, I got a few words for some of our brothers and sisters in the occupied zone. The chair is against the wall. The chair is against the wall. John has a long mustache. John has a long mustache. It's 12 o'clock, Americans, another day closer to victory. And for all of you out there on or behind the lines, this is your song.
This is Earl Benson, reporting from downtown Topeka, where Gizzard Gary is rampaging through the city. Authorities have asked the public to stay indoors. They believe he will tire soon and need a nap. Gizzard Gary can normally be seen on Foul Territory, Friday nights at 7 p.m. Central. Wednesday, 8 p.m. for the channel members chat. Stay safe and give him the bird. Earl Benson signing off.
And welcome everybody to our Daily Gun Show. And on Fridays we wrap up the week with a look at what's been going on. Puppy co-host is over this. There's a lot of fireworks going on tonight. Mello's freaking out, and Puppy co-host doesn't know what to make of it. I don't know why there's so many fireworks going off tonight, but there's a lot of big fireworks going off. Or Tucson's under attack. If somebody knows that Tucson's under attack, let me know, because there's seriously big fireworks going off. Maybe something's happening over at the Met base. Something's happening. But we're going to dig into this week. Puppy's going to go down into the corner, down over here. Like every week, Super Chats feed this dog food. So Super Chat, and you'll get food into this dog's mouth. All right, so what do? We wrap up the week so that, a couple of reasons, we archive this information that we're about to look at so that we say it live so that people can participate in it and add to the whole thing, so that the live thing can be used as a podcast, so that the transcription of our live thing gets written down as verbiage and like more descriptors of what we're about to see as bullet points here. And then we distribute this or archive it in multiple places, including our Patreon blog, which is where our Patreons, as it says down here at the bottom, the people who support our projects financially, allow us to do what we do, keep our servers running and pay for the software that it keeps to keep everything going. We keep them informed first. Then we have a newsletter. We also have a Substack, and that's what we're looking at right now. Anybody can subscribe to that. We have the Instagrams, and we have a podcast, which I briefly mentioned there, which if you're listening to this as a podcast, welcome. If you're listening to this, oh yeah, there's so many fireworks going off tonight. First off, Mello is freaked out. She doesn't like it. And they're rattling the house. What is going on? What is today? Is this some holiday I'm not aware of? There's a lot of fireworks going off. So we thank everybody who's listening to us as a podcast listener in the future. And thank you for the likes and the feedback that you're giving us over there. If you're listening this evening on the X, which it looks like 5 people are at the moment, you can leave comments and they show up on screen, just like Woods and DJ and Gunswater. Welcome. All right, so let's dig in. We're going to be looking at the news of the week. There's a bunch of news this week, of course. We'll talk about the stuff that people have created that is focused on what our Second Amendment protects, the important stuff. Then we'll talk about the general gun stuff, which is, stuff that's kind of keeping everybody current and aware of what's going on out there. Now we're going to dig into, or after that, I guess, we'll dig into some radio shows that we listen to on the regular. We also listen to some military interview shows. We'll take a look at the calendar if there's time permitting. And then we'll wrap it up with, wow, that is a lot of fireworks. What the hell is going on? We'll wrap it up with what we've been doing this evening. Is that what that is? I thought the base was blowing up. Do you know where the fireworks are? It has to be at the base. It's Charles Heller texted me. Holy crap. Charles Heller lives like 3 blocks from me. He says it's a show. Wow. Holy moly. My dog Mello hates fireworks, so she's not enjoying this. Yeah, it's cool. It's happening. I should go outside and look at it real quick. Yeah, I'm going to go outside and look at it real quick. Y'all are going to get a commercial, and I'm going to go climb on my roof real quick because he says it's happening right here on this part of the base. So I'll be right back. But everybody's going to get to watch, 50 seconds worth of something. How about this?
Captain, a vessel approaching.
On screen.
We're being hailed.
Every weekend over at peerwebsites.com, our online store, we have free Patch Friday. And that means that every order placed on our store on Fridays is going to include at least one free patch. So that's every order with no coupons, no minimum order, no codes needed. You place the order on Friday, and when it arrives to you, it's going to have at least one free patch. Your support means a lot to us, and financial support is critical. So thanks again to the people who keep us online through purchases at gearwebsites.com.
Come here. Come back up here now. This fell off my roof. Come here. Come here. Come here. What are you doing? Here. Come here. We gotta teach this dog to do one of them things where he jumps up. Sick of that. I pick him up all the time. They could be some kind of princess. Yeah, there's definitely giant fireworks going off. So I guess the Air Force has a bunch of money to throw off fireworks all night. They've been going off since Gizzards is this show. What did Charles say? I guess that's why he was texting to let Mello know what was going on. All right. So we had a little interruption. Your fancy scripted shows don't have interruptions. They just are all fancy and everything's scripted, and producers make sure that there's no errors and whatever. We get stopped by essentially what could have been an attack. Anyway, so then we'll wrap it up with the stuff that we did this week. But let's dig into it. Puppy, don't be gross when we're on the live thing. Yeah, well, nobody wants to hear you doing that either. All right, so there was a presidential debate. One of the things that we did this week was watch that off of CNN, so a bunch of people didn't have to. And then, let's see. Then they didn't mention guns. I thought that was pretty good. A lot of people are just laughing at them and whatnot, whatever. But at least they didn't bring up guns. And I seen a couple of people on the X making fun of the people who are anti-gun rights and anti-guns to make fun of them for how much they're whining about it. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see what's going on. It'd be nice if they didn't bring it up so much anymore, if they realize that it's a non-starter. So then we have the Surgeon General declaring gun violence as a public health crisis. Just putting that in there so that people know that this is the week that it happened. But essentially, I've seen a couple of good things. There's something called, oh man, I forgot it now, Gun Facts or something like that on Twitter or on X. And they do a pretty good job of offering context, or they research the issues when stuff like this comes up. So they contrasted this Surgeon General's declaration And a week earlier, the same newspapers were reporting how gun violence is down. You know, what if you want to consider gun violence, you know, violence with a gun being down. So that after all-time highs, it's been down. But then at the same time, weeks later, in time for presidential stuff, you got the Surgeon General being used for political stuff, political issues. All right, I'm putting the dog down. He's being bad. You're going down now. He needs a certain amount of kisses when he goes down. That's just the way it goes. All right, so we'll pull up the whole screen somehow. How do I get rid of him? This. No? What's going on? This? Can't. This? Full screen. Interesting. So my mouse ain't working? What's going on? I guess I'm restarting. Oh, you know what it is? I'm clicking the wrong thing. No? Okay, something's going on. All right, try this again. My computer wasn't working, so now it might work. And it looks like I can do this and actually get it on full screen. Okay. Gun epidemic. I think the Surgeon General, Woods is saying the sky's falling gun epidemic. I think the Surgeon General is involved because the three issues that guns can be: medical, societal, or civil, or legal, or whatever you want to say. Like, they can either be a legal thing, they can be a societal thing, or they can be a medical thing. They own medical. Like, medical is bought and paid for by whoever pays them. So they can use medical, and it gives it a validity because they're doctors or whatever. And in this case, a doctor that's appointed. So I think they're doctors. I'm assuming they're doctors. But you know what I mean? They choose medical because it's something that doesn't focus on policy that creates the issue. And half the time the police only partially work with them, and in this case it's really difficult. I think at the end of Gizzard's show they were talking about it. It's really difficult to suggest that guns are a big issue, especially a health crisis, when we have something like 10 times more people dying from fentanyl than guns. So to suggest that you'd put any amount of attention on one of the smallest things just because there's a political movement to make the government have a monopoly on the violence, just because that exists doesn't mean you get to ignore, the other roles of the U.S. Surgeon General. But whatever. So we have that happening this week, and of course, we'll move on. Bipartisan Safer Communities Act has a section that allows FFLs to verify guns that are reported to a stolen guns inventory or database, and it looks like that's been implemented recently. So I don't know. That's something that I think should be brought up on more conversations. It's not a major issue, but the idea of the federal government keeping track of which guns were stolen can sound great on the surface until you start to think about all the gray areas. When is it stolen? Bickering between brothers about who owns the shotgun or something like that. So where do we want the federal government to fall into things, and where do people who shit casually insist that the federal government be part of things? And that's what we're dealing with, is the Republicans who voted for the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act, the BSCA, that is giving us plenty of gifts. It's paying back Bloomberg, and it's giving us all these little gifts. So the next thing is the federal courts handed down 865 gun rights decisions in 2023. In other words, courts dealt with issues that talked about gun owners' rights, since guns don't have rights. Should we say gun owners' rights? So that's 865 in 2023. In 2021, they dealt with 121. So guns have not become an issue. Guns are being engineered to be an issue. And it's a distraction, and it's a one that they're able to depend on. The people who are anti-gun owners are able to depend on blaming guns because they know we're not unified. They know that our national level organizations are all out for themselves, and that there's no collaboration and there's no organization amongst ourselves to defend against the all the different ways that they mischaracterize guns and gun owners. So that's an indication of the intensity from 100 to 865, and those are federal court cases. So think of how many small things had to go on for these 865 to float to the surface. Not only is it a large number, but it's an indicative of much, much, much larger mess, right? All right, so talking about messes, ATF deals with 65,000 to 80,000 suppressor applications each month. And I got that information from an article that was talking about how fast the times are now. So I don't really care how fast the times are because I don't want an NFA anymore, and I will not be happy that the compliance with NFA is made easier just because they created more bureaucracy to make it happen faster. But I am going to focus on the fact that 65,000 to 80,000 suppressor applications go through each month. Think about how many suppressors are being purchased each month. 65,000 Oh, is Charles listening right now? I don't know what he's talking about. But the, that's 65,000 to 85,000 suppressor applications going through each month. That's another big reason. That's something that could be mobilized. I'd like to see ASA do something more about that. Trying to think back over with the lag and stuff, what Charles might be thinking about, or if he's listening. Federal courts handed down. I don't know. I talked a bunch of shit right now, so I'm not sure exactly what he's talking about because of the lag. Let's see. So Michigan wants to make the state's official rifle the AR-15. So that would be cool. I don't know if that's the perfect rifle for the Mitten state, but I'd like to see more states have state rifles or state guns. The last one was Texas a couple of years ago, and I think it was number 10. So it'd be nice to see, each state with a state gun that meant something to the state. I don't like ours. Oh, I said that the national organizations don't cooperate with each other. Okay. I understand that some of them do, but I guess my issue, and since I'm talking to Charles, as Charles would say, I am narrow casting to Charles since he's texting me reactions to what we're saying here. I guess my issue with the national level organizations is they're so focused on court cases. It's that analogy that if you got a hammer, all you think about is nails. Everything is a nail. So there's all these court cases, and I see a lot of exploitation of the misunderstandings, I'm going to say ignorance, but you know what I mean, like the unawareness of guns in the general public. If we think of the two ends of the extreme, those of us that understand firearms and understand gun ownership, and the other side that won't acknowledge guns and hate gun ownership. And then we've got that portion in the middle. Some people say 80%, but some large portion in the middle that could care less one way or the other. The issues that we've dealt with since my involvement in 2015 have been us not being able to own the message. And part of the reason is we play defense a lot, and part of that is because we are a bunch of individuals. So I like to use the analogy that and Charles will like this analogy, that the NRA is like our battleship. It's like our aircraft carrier. It has a lot of clout. It can do stuff, but it's slow to turn, and it involves a lot of infrastructure, and it requires a lot to keep moving. And And then we've got our smaller, now I don't know the names of all these ships, but we've got our smaller attack ships and our support ships. And we've got our other organizations that do valuable things. And we've got some battleships out there, and we've got some torpedo boats, right? We've got some submarines, because Charles would want us to have some submarines. So we've got these other vessels available to us. And I think what happens is a lot of people who came along and just saw the NRA as this kind of giant thing, they take it all for granted. They don't care at all what the NRA is doing. They've been told that the NRA is responsible for the 1934, they're responsible for the 1968, they're not responsible for the 1986. And so people have written off the NRA. So there's a whole generation, seems like, of gun owners, especially adult gun owners, who don't even care about the NRA. So now they're centric on FPC, GOA, and to some extent SAF, but only in like an aside. They don't care what these organizations do. They support them because they're on our side and that's all we've got, but they're not paying attention. So that's the frustrating part, is we've got lots of resources on our side, tons of potential, and the organizations that we've got are focused almost solely on court cases. So Second Amendment Foundation has done some diversification for sure with the gun rights policy conferences each year, in addition to collaborative things and branching out into other things and supporting other organizations and all that. GOA has definitely reached out to do other things. I'm not as satisfied with their attempts, because they put out a lot of tentacles, and sometimes they're interesting and they've got validity, but then they just wither and die on the vine. So it's very difficult to support anything GOA does, because they support so many things and just let them go. And then we've got FPC, and they only do lawsuits. They don't even try to do anything else, but they like to be so in your face. Since SAF, well, I guess since JPFO dropped off from being the in your face, FPC has become in your face, but instead of being centric to the JPFO's messaging, let's not forget the past and let's remember that. Of course, FPC is just trying to be in your face and trying to get their name out there with stuff. So anyway, we've got these organizations that sure they work together and they create court cases, but what we don't do is empower activists. We don't empower people to go to gun shows. We don't empower people to go to other events. We don't empower authors. We don't empower social media people who have all kinds of different tactics and skill sets out there. We occasionally they use them, but only to further whatever specific goals the organizations have. And what we don't do is have a inventory of our resources on this side and have any kind of a collaborative or coordinated, I should say, use of those resources, so that we're not wasting resources and that we've covered everything we can on the defense as well as offense. And right now we've got a couple of walls, and we got a lot of people supporting those walls, but because we only have a couple of walls, there's huge gaps, and the antis can just set up camp and exploit those gaps. And it's more than frustrating. It'll be 10 years now that I've been watching this, so I'm no longer satisfied that the organizations are attempting to change this. They're either ignorant to it or satisfied with the status quo. So that's where I say they don't work together. So when I'm talking about that specifically, it's the fact that the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act even happened. It is an affront. It is ridiculous that in 2022 they were able to push through under Biden a bipartisan gun control that essentially paid back Bloomberg, which is what I see it as a way to play back Bloomberg, make the states dance, and then the states that dance fastest for them, they get to pay back Bloomberg. And then this kind of bullshit, this list of stolen guns. If that wanted to be voluntary through the gun shops or through NSSF, I might support it, but through ATF, nah, no thank you. So that was a long-winded, specific, kind of narrow cast to Charles, but I'm not sure. He says some state needs to adopt the Tommy gun. What state should adopt the Thompson submachine gun? I mean, I know what state Thompson lived in, and that should be the state, but they might already have a gun. I have to think about it. Charles says court cases are the basis for the expansion of freedom right now. I don't disagree, but I say we can do more. And I think that for one, let's put the liberal gun owners to task. This has been one of my most recent frustrations is we have quite a few people on the liberal gun owner side. And I don't mean specifically that organization that uses that name, but just any in general liberal gun owner. They should be tasked with changing the minds of their own sides. And they're not doing that. So I'd like to see more coordinated stuff, but that's one thing. So political tactics that involve change in the minds of Democrats. And then I want to see the same thing with independents, with Green and with libertarians. They all talk like, oh, we're better than everybody else, but let's see them do some work on changing the policy of their parties. And that doesn't happen. And then we've got like California, 7 million gun owners in California last time I looked. And then we have national level organizations. Why don't we have sister states? Why don't the states pair up and have that coordinated somehow so that states can help each other? They don't have to necessarily be bordered, like where we share rivers and stuff, but just states that can kind of lend support to each other. We have these states that are quote unquote free states. People sit around thinking they're better than everybody. And then we got the states that are quote unquote behind enemy lines. They shouldn't feel like they're alone. They should feel like they've got support. And why aren't the national level organizations working towards that? So I'm talking about big picture stuff that's more than just what they have done. And I'm not saying that they should be doing this. I'm just saying that it'd be better if we had national level organizations taking care of some of these things. And well, when we know that we have national level organizations that bring in like $24 million a month, I'm just saying we have the resources available to do this stuff. And I'm no longer accepting the fact that, oh yeah, nobody thought to do it yet. Nobody decided to do it yet. I can't be the first one to think that we have a lot of resources going to waste. But gun agnostics, Wood says. State level orgs do cooperate. That's what GRPC is for. I wish I could agree with you, dude. Like, seriously. And if you want to have a chat sometime about it, I was as encouraged about GRPC as anybody. But unfortunately, I'm not as encouraged about it anymore. But I'm not going to not support it, but I don't believe that it's doing that. They introduce each other each year. They do that for sure, but they're split. They should have changed up GRPC in 2018, like they thought about doing, or at least they suggested they were thinking about doing, and have one for activists and one for presentation to the world, because they attempt to do both and they fail at both. But I'm going to keep going. And I would say you could say I'm wrong, except that since 2015, I've been intimately involved. I've gone to everyone I could, and nothing has changed. We haven't seen a change in the national level organizations. In fact, I've seen national level organizations attend GRPC and never go back again. And because GRPC doesn't even fathom that that's a concept, that's happening, shows that they're not aware. So we know why it's happening, because we've seen it happen in other things, but that phenomenon is happening in the community, in that community, and it's frustrating. But I don't blame anybody. That's just the way that it happens when, what does it say? Things move on. Different people take the leads of different organizations and stuff. So I kind of went off on some tangents, but anyway, so let's keep moving. Department of the Interior announced $87 million in funding for the Migratory Bird Conservation Commission. It sounds like a lot of money to the government, but they just make money. So 87 million. I'd like to see, again, national level organizations besides NSSF, because they have a lot tasked to them. And I suspect some of the hunting organizations might try this, but they're not funded enough to do this. But I'd like to see somebody paying attention to that $87 million worth of bureaucracy, because somebody's getting rich off of this. And I doubt it's a bird. But all right, I'm going to keep going. So that was our news of the week. Most of this, in fact, pretty much all of this comes from the NSSF government relations newsletter that comes out on Fridays. So they do a pretty good job. That newsletter was probably 3 pages printed. I boiled it down to here for the bullet points. So if you're interested in getting essentially the links to all the articles that they point to, you could just subscribe to it. It's free. The NSSF actually has like a dozen different newsletters you can sign up for industry and our community, mostly for the industry. All right, so now we'll get into the 2A talk. Most important thing that happens every week is Brooke Cheney doing her Suicide Prevention Saturday. an attempt since 2018, every single Saturday, to normalize the discussion on mental health and suicide prevention, giving us the tools to speak comfortably about these issues, in spite of the fact that no matter what the platform, they won't differentiate between the positive and negative discussions on suicide. So she's constantly fighting the battle to be on the platforms. They insist that anytime you mention suicide, it's got to be negative. So bravo to her. Walk the Talk America is another organization that's in that realm. The intersection of guns and mental health. They do a podcast that gets recorded almost every week, and then it gets edited and posted just like our show, except I don't edit anything. So it gets recorded live like this, and then at some point it gets all fancied up and then posted as a podcast. So I like to listen to the live side because I'm raw. This one was them talking about the Stop Stigma Together National Summit that was hosted in Colorado recently. So pretty interesting discussion. Mike from Walk Talk America went up there and represented, the gun community, I guess, with this group of mental health people in the medical field who are attempting to stop the stigma on mental health awareness or mental health discussions. So interesting conversation this morning. It's about 90 minutes. I listened to about an hour of it, and then I had to start another meeting. So I kind of half listened to the last half of it. I'm going to be working more with Walk the Talk America going forward. It looks like they've asked me to help out with a forum or something that they're working on. So instead of me trying to do it myself, I thought I would ask DJ and a couple others to join in, and we'll take like a red marker to it and give them our thoughts. But essentially it's a checklist that they want to use. I'm not 100% sure of the application, but it's a checklist that they would give gun owners to kind of create awareness of the issues or whatever. So anyway, and then they've invited me to be on their podcast, and I have an idea of what I'd like to chat about. I need to get about a week's worth of work before I go do that. So I'll see what kind of time frame they've got. Next up is the Armed Citizens Legal Defense Network. Had done a bunch of videos at NRA show, and one of them is Alex Ooley. I don't know if Charles is still listening. Have you ever met Alex Ooley, or have you ever listened to his show, Forge of Freedom? He's a pretty good, he is a good lawyer, but I think he's the lawyer I'd most I prefer listening to break down legal stuff, because he's not trying to get famous and he's not trying to do something fancy on YouTube. He just oftentimes just has audio, and he can talk, calmly and rationally. He's one of the Armed Citizens Legal Defense Network attorneys in Indiana. Hold on. Oh, okay. Maybe I can get you guys together, and if you're looking for guests or what. But he's in Indiana, so I don't know if he knows anything about submarines, but whatever. So then Toby did a show chatting about PLCCA, I'm guessing, PLCCA. PLCAA, but whatever. I didn't listen to this, or I didn't watch this one, but Toby, that was like a 3-minute video. If I had more time tonight, I'd probably just play this one, but I'm not going to. Then we got Michael Cargill. If Charles ever wants to have Michael Cargill on, I've been listening to Come and Talk It since like 2016 or maybe 17 or something like that. Whenever Yoder, Texas would post the link on Sundays, he was on. Michael Cargill did a show called Come and Talk It out of Texas. He owns a gun shop in Austin, Texas, and so he did this radio show, and it was on just after Charles's show. So I would listen to Charles in the morning. His show is called Liberty Watch Radio. And then he's got a couple other shows. Then I would listen to Michael Cargill, and then a little while later, Amanda and her brother would be on with Eye on the Target. And then San Diego Gun Owners would be on. So Sundays used to be pretty good. Michael stopped doing his show Sundays and started moving it to like Wednesdays, and then he's been doing it less and less frequently. But he still has the gun shop, and in I forget what year, maybe 22 or something, he decided to sue the government for the bump stocks, and that eventually went to the Supreme Court, and that is the Cargill decision. So Riding Shotgun with Charlie had Michael Cargill on. Actually, Meet the Pressers and Riding Shotgun Charlie had Michael on. And so I think the first time I heard him talking about or having been interviewed since the decision. So it's cool to be able to know. I've been able to, I think Mo McDonald isn't here, but I don't know, Heller doesn't know my name, but I shook hands with Heller before. I'm pretty sure I have a picture with Bacon Bit being held by Heller. And then Rhonda Ezel, I think she would know me if we met. I mean, I met her a bunch of times. And then Michael Cargill. So I know 3 people, or I've shook the hand of 3 people that have had cases go to the Supreme Court. That's pretty cool. Charles might have met McDonald, so he might know all 4 of them. But anyway, this is a pretty good interview. And again, chatting with Michael after, successful taking it to the Supreme Court. Very cool. Then we've got The Forge of Freedom, Alex Ooley's podcast, going over the Rahimi decision. Then we've got, this one is the finished version of the Walk the Talk America podcast when they had Jacqueline Clark from the gun shop in Colorado. And this was a good one. Like, this was just a good conversation in general. So even though I listened to the raw version, this is the finished version. It's worth checking out because it was an interesting one. That's a gun shop in Colorado that's sort of like Tony Simon. They're catering to the gun owner, but also the new gun owner and the person who isn't familiar with our community and stuff like that. So it's just an interesting, imagining Colorado with all those Californians, right? Oh, okay. So Charles said that he's already talked to Michael Cargill. He'll be on Sunday at noon. I'll have to figure out how to, I don't think Charles will mind if I rebroadcast. I'll see if I can't rebroadcast Charles' show like the old days. Put it up on YouTube while it's live. Let's see. Then we get, because of what happened with the Surgeon General, Michael Schwartz. Now, Charles might know Michael Schwartz. I'm not sure. I consider Michael one of the most effective state level organizations. He's San Diego County Gun Owners, and I've had him on to interview him a while back, and then I've chatted with him. I'm listening to the show every week, and then when I went to the gun show out there in San Diego earlier this year, I got to hang out with him a little bit more. But these guys are when I keep challenging the liberal gun owners, like at first liberal gun owners just didn't say nothing, I guess, because nobody cared. And then they started saying, no gun owners are liberal. And then the liberal gun owners all went, yeah, we are. We're still here. We just don't say nothing. So then the liberal gun owners started coming around in 2017 and saying, like online and going, oh no, nobody pays attention to liberal gun owners. And then they started organizations. They started whole, clubs and stuff. So now they have these groups, and before they weren't in groups. And there's always been liberal gun owners. There's these groups of them. Well, that's been since like at least 5-6 years now. So I don't know how long they want to incubate before they start doing something. But I don't care if their initial goals were not to change the mind of politicians, but if they insist on being liberal and they insist on voting for politicians that want to do liberal shit, that's awesome. It's a free country. Go do that. But now change those liberals' minds on guns. Because what the hell? You can be liberal all you want. Just change their mind on guns. We just want to normalize guns. We just want guns off the books. Then go complain about, what's liberal and conservative on other issues. I think Mike does the best job of that. He's not a liberal that I'm aware of. But he's willing to support and chat with and be open-minded with and take the jargon of. And that's one of the things I definitely admire from the Gun Rights Policy Conference. These are those first ones I went to, and probably to some extent the current ones. But the ability to see and interact with different people in the community, not just the gun community, but in just other communities. And anyway, the San Diego Gun Owners does a good job of getting a lot of liberals and liberal adjacent folks together. There's probably some conservatives in there, but they're very liberal conservatives, right? They're very center conservatives, I'm sure, if they are willing to live in California. But they're able to make headway in a place where you wouldn't think they'd be able to. And they brought gun shows back to San Diego. And when I chatted with him and challenged him and asked him questions, Mike's always had interesting perspective on stuff. So I definitely value his strategies and his tactics. And so I was curious to see when they talked about the Surgeon General talking about guns being a health crisis. Michael was on talking to the press about this. Problem is, I don't know what this press is. I don't know what this is. We'll see what it is here in a second. It's called like OAN or something. I have no idea what this is. I've never heard of it before. But I'm guessing it's some kind of Republican news service. Oh, maybe I can't play it. I think it's some kind of Republican news service. So although it says Michael Schwartz responds, he didn't. I wasn't really enthusiastic about his response because they essentially talked about politics the whole time. Anyway, next, this one is GOA. This is what we get from the GOA. Thumbnails and a 9-minute video talking about, oh man, they changed the title twice on me. So I'm not sure when I first post. What is going on? Why isn't none of my stuff working? Am I still live? Or maybe they changed the title again. I'm guessing though I'm not live. Something's glitching. So I will quit clicking on these things. But anyway, that's the end of the two-way stuff this week. Now we'll get into the gun-related stuff. I will always put She Fires first, doing her live chat on Sundays, keeping people together and chatting about the basics, essentially. She's been going through and talking about different kind of training and different type of gun handling and different type of things that you're going to experiences as a new gun owner, an adult new gun owner. I've been, since Charles is listening, I'm doing a lot of narrowcasting tonight. I've been differentiating a lot in the last year or so about gun owners, because I think of gun owners, because everybody I know has owned guns since we were little kids and we're old. So I used to think of that as a gun owner. I'd no longer, at least I'm now dividing gun owners up to adult gun owners. So people who decided as an adult to become a gun owner, and they may be a gun owner for the last 5-10 years or less. And it's just different. I think there's a difference there. And I try to keep track of that difference and not put a bunch of shit on people who didn't grow up with them. You know, if you didn't shoot 1 billion guns in your teens, then you've only shot in, I don't know, 100 guns or something. There's probably people that haven't shot even 100 guns before. Or there's probably people that haven't shot 25 guns, right? So I've been interested in, or not interested, but I've been attempting to make a divide there for folks that are new, and then with that insight, been interested in seeing the ways that people choose to progress their journey into guns. Pretty much everybody buys a gun because they're looking for something to defend themselves. But then what do they do next? Do they get into competition? Do they double down on the training and get into more guns that are more practical and useful? Do they get into ornate guns or guns that their parents or grandparents had? Like, are they buying guns for their kids? Like, as adult gun owners, you've got a whole different set of circumstances than just a new toy, right? So it's been interesting to follow some of the chats from folks who are creating environments for that to be shared, for that their experiences to be shared. And again, I will take this time just to mention it again. We are not entitled to this. No one is obligated to hosting a show every week. Gizzard did a show before this one. He does a show every Friday, bringing people together, creating consistency, giving us a place to talk about the debate. Right. If there was, there was talk of the Rahimi decision a little bit, you know, when it's good news or bad news with federal legislation or law or Supreme Court cases, which have been happening more and more. These live conversations that happen on a regular basis, you know, afford us the community. So when we think about how the government of the United States was created, people sitting in a tavern. When we think about how the Marines were created, people sitting around in a tavern, right? When we think about how the Arizona Citizens Defense League was created, it was dudes sitting around in a Waffle House. Pretty sure it was Waffle House. So all that stuff happens. People sitting around, concerned, you know, aware of the same stuff, bouncing ideas off each other, getting motivated, and getting things done. So these online conversations, these hosts of these online shows, the shows themselves, please don't take them for granted. It's one of the true treasures that we get from the internet is being able to share with each other without much involvement at all from anything, except for the infrastructures that provide the tech, right? Oh, is it the Five and Diner? I always like to say Waffle House, but Charles corrected me. It's the Five and Diner. So now hopefully everybody will remind me to say Five and Diner. I don't know if that'll stick because for some reason I always think of that Waffle House on Ray Road. Every time I drive, I'd spent too many years driving past it and going, oh, that's where they started the Arizona Citizens Defense League. But what was Five and Diner? That's that one that looks like it's all stainless steel. It looks like an old diner, I guess. Looks like DJ booked out of here. All right, so I don't know if anybody's even listening anymore, but then we got the Liberal Gun Club had Professor Yamane on. I don't know if Charles has ever interviewed Professor Yamane, but he's a professor at Wake Forest University, and he wrote this book. It just is published this month called Gun Curious. He teaches a course on firearms at Wake Forest and takes the students out to shoot. And then after a number of 10 or 14 years of doing this, he decided to write a book, and he had to shop it around a little bit. And so he was on with the San Diego, or with this Liberal Gun Owners, which is Laura Smith. And somewhere in here, I wish I would have, maybe I'll try to take a clip. I have listened to about half of this, but somewhere in here, what the heck is going on? Somewhere in here, though, about 15 minutes into the hour or something, she actually asked him the question that I've been asking liberals for a while now. Because again, hey, anybody can come onto the scene, but don't bitch about the scene if you're not going to roll up your sleeves and do something about it. And it's been 5 or 6 years for the liberals to come in and make a spot for themselves and say, you know what, we're liberals and we're not going to act like we're not liberals. It's like, right on, do it. Let's do it. And then it's like, you can't just sit there and say, well, we're liberals and that's it. Well, so, okay, you're liberals, now change things, do something, exercise some of that power. So Laura asked Professor Yamane, as liberals, what can we do? And I won't spoil it, but it was worth listening to that. And like I say, I've only listened to half of it, so maybe the rest of it is even better. Tony and the rest of his crew does the Guns and Gear Review podcast on Tuesdays. I try to watch it. It happens the same time as Ghost, and that's where I keep up with what guns are coming out and what. I don't really pay attention to that stuff. I let other people do it, and then I just watch them talk about it. Then we have the Guns for Everyone up in Colorado. 10% of all CCWs in Colorado have gone through Guns for Everyone, and those were free CCW classes. And they've been doing their podcast intermittently for the last couple of weeks. So this week they had Brian DeBausch on, an attorney in Colorado. And it was a pretty good conversation. I think I listened to the end of this one. I think I got in there about halfway and heard the end of it. It was pretty good. There's Woods and Foss going out to the range on Foss's Take a Friend to the Range series. I don't know if Woods is still out there. Then, of course, Foss hosts the Mouse Parties on Wednesday, a non-scripted, no-topic conversation. Again, thanks to the people that keep our communities together, especially those people that keep us together in the middle of the night. People that are up overnight, getting everything done, fixing the planet, cleaning everything up, everything that everybody else takes for granted. That's why I do my shows at midnight. We'll keep going, but thanks to Foss for hosting an overnight show. Christmas 740 posted a video about all the different things you can do with the Glock platform. And yeah, I figured I'd post that. This is part 5 of a series. There's definitely a lot of things you could do with a Glock, for sure, especially in 2024. So this is Dragon Man's. This is the Dragon Man era. We had the era of J.M. Davis in Oklahoma. And if you would have been driving down Route 66, you would have been able to experience the largest private firearms collection, and you would have been able to stay in his hotel. Well, in 2024, you're making the decision to not go to Dragon Man's. So Dragon Man's has the largest collection of firearms in the world that's available to everybody. Just go hang out. And he brings hundreds of people through his collection. Of course, it's not going to let me show any videos tonight, but again, everyone who's watched this show knows that Dragon Man's exists. He's in Colorado Springs. Fly into Denver, do yourself a favor, fly into Albuquerque and rent a vehicle, drive up past Red Dawn and drive up past the Wittenberg Center, and then drive up to Dragon Man's, and then maybe drive up to Denver and fly out of Denver. But experience Dragon Man's. You're gonna at one time you're gonna have to go, dang it, we didn't go to Dragon Man's. Now, I hope Dragon Man's will be there forever, but we're living in the Dragon Man's era. You got until the end of the summer, and then he closes for the winter. So go check that out. Riding Shotgun with Charlie had Joe on from Akel's Defense. I don't remember how many people even remember this show. This show was like a big deal for a minute there. Whittingham, yep. This show was a big deal for a minute there, the Red Jacket, and I wonder how many people even know what I'm talking about. So I didn't listen to this one, so I don't know if that's what they talk about or if they just talk about his gun business now. Next up is the Blue and Green podcast. This is a guy who is he used to be an Arizona State Trooper, but then he's not in the law enforcement anymore. And now he's like the board for NORML, the National Organization of Marijuana Laws. So he's got a podcast where he brings on law enforcement people and talks to them about marijuana issues. And because he's in, what's it called? Santan area, Santan Valley. He lives up there. He has had on all kinds of interesting law enforcement people. And they do talk about marijuana a little bit, but they also just talk about the job of doing policing in 2023, 2024. Really long, really interesting interviews. Now, he's also been going up to Rhino Farms, which is this garden that is up in Santan. And it's like 3-acre garden that does a bunch of stuff with critters and with mushrooms and with vegetables. And they've been doing this series, 20-minute series on the different, like how to grow chickens or how to grow ducks, in this case, how to grow turkeys. So I'm not sure what the next one will be, but I can't wait. Really enjoy Rhino Farms. It's a cool place. And as soon as it's cool enough, I'll start driving up there again. Then we've got New York Outcast, who is not in here tonight, but he posted a video of him walking someplace in New York, the Glen Canyon State Park. No, it's not called Glen Canyon up there. It's just called Glen State Park. Glen Canyon State Park is in Arizona. Then we were chatting about Lancelot Link someplace, probably in the overnight, and then DJ found this. I think I may have seen this before, but I'm not sure. But definitely was worth watching again. These are the guys that created Lancelot Link. So I was talking about how back in the day, before school, they would have Lancelot Link on before school. So I could watch sometimes 2 episodes of Lancelot Link, and then then I'd go to school. So I acted like a monkey a lot in school because they would put on Lancelot Link in the morning. Anyway, Lancelot Link is excellent, and the people that haven't seen it before, they took a mess of monkeys, so it was like 12 monkeys, and they dressed them up like, oh man, none of my videos are working. They dressed them up like James Bond or Get Smart, because I think they're the same people that wrote Get Smart, and it was amazing. So it was spy monkeys and cowboy monkeys and surfer monkeys and hippie monkeys and bad guy monkeys, and they would always be doing adventures, and they drove around in cars and had guns and stuff. It was amazing. And most of the monkeys, one monkey had to chew gum. All the other monkeys were just taught to act like they were talking, and they were taught to wear their clothes. And that behind the scenes episode talks about how they would, like, one time they mauled one of the veterinarians, and then like let's just say they were unruly. Back in the 70s, monkeys weren't as fancy as the monkeys are today. So then we got the radio shows. Charles has radio shows, Liberty Watch Radio. Then we've got Toby out of Massachusetts doing the show on Sunday. He's got the set to a Tuesday segment of the Oh my goodness. Here's a 2A Tuesday segment of the Grace Curley show on Tuesdays, and then he does his show on Wednesdays. This week, I think things got screwed up. Wait a minute. No, they didn't. I think my schedule got screwed up, so I didn't listen to all his shows. But he did do something earlier this morning, also chatting about the end of, what is it called, Chevron. So I'm a big fan of Toby's. As a gun shop owner, he's aware of what's going on. As somebody in Massachusetts, he's living behind enemy lines, so to speak, and fighting for that. And he's competent as a show host, keeping up with the live conversations and then the call-ins, as well as like the weirdos and everything. He's just able to take it all in stride. So been a fan of his. If you're going to listen to something each week, I think that one's not going to waste your time. Then you've got the Gun Owners Radio, and normally this one gets taken down. They usually stream their show live, and then they take that down and chop it up, and they push it up as individual segments. But I enjoy listening to these things live. You get to, hear the real deal, and then it's not all fancy, and you get to hear all the ums and ahs and the breaks and the misunderstandings and everything else. It's a lot more fun, in my opinion, listening to stuff live. So that's on Sundays. And this week, I guess Paul must have had time off work or something. So he hosted the Eye on the Target radio again this week. So it's pretty much the same as it was before, but maybe they'll start doing it on the regular again. George is going back to the lawyers. The lawyers are probably raking in super chats talking about the decision today. Let's see. Then we got the gun calendars. We're just about at an hour, so we'll probably go peek over there real quick. But this is a good opportunity for me to say thanks to our Patreons. It says on the bottom of the screen there, our Patreons make projects like this possible. So those capitalists out there that financially support what we do are invaluable. We have 3 servers that run all the websites. We've got some software. It's not a ton, but it's a couple $100 here and there. And all of that is made possible by those Patreons. Most of them are buying us a cup of coffee, maybe a box of ammo each month, and that adds up, and it pays for those services, and it allows us to keep doing what we're doing. So thanks to them. That's why there's no ads over here. You don't see anything like an ad. The closest thing would be our link to our own sites, Second Amendment Foundation, AZCDL, JPFO, and GOA. And those aren't paid links or anything. Those are just links. Definitely GOA or AZCDL has never paid me a dime. Let's just make that clear. AZCDL has never paid me a dime. So gun calendars is what it says. It's just a calendar. So being that it is the end of the month, we'll be taking a look at what's coming up. Oh, speaking of McDonald, today is the anniversary of McDonald's. McDonald in Chicago. So we've had 2 individuals sue the city of Chicago and take it to the Supreme Court 3 times. McDonald was the first one in 2010, which focused the Heller decision of 2008. And then Rhonda Ezell took the city of Chicago, to the Supreme Court twice and won. That was all 3 of those actually were the Second Amendment Foundation. So as much as I bitch about our national level organizations only do lawsuits, those lawsuits are powerful, and they do them, right? They're not doing it. I'm just saying I'd like to see other national organizations that do other things. I'm not saying the existing ones have to do more, but I'd like to see us as a community spend our resources more effectively. But anyway, so it's the anniversary of McDonald. Awesome. There's a cartridge collector show happening in Pennsylvania. So if I was wealthy enough to travel again, I'd be going to these ammunition-specific gun shows. How cool is that? Gun shows for just bullets, that people that collect bullets. I can't wait to be able to go to those. One day we'll have the guy on who runs those shows. I met him in Vegas, but I haven't been able to get him on the show. Let's see. Coming up this weekend on Sunday, we'll experience the anniversary of Browning's pump shotgun being patented back in 1890. The Federal Firearms Act of 1938, one that people don't think about very often. We think of the NFA, the National Firearms Act of 1934, but the Federal Firearms Act, the FFA, is where we get FFLs. That's the one that created the stupid FFL system. Then we've got the Export Act of 1976. Anybody remember what that one did? Yep. tariffs on certain American arms and manufacturers. So remember when I talk about this every once in a while? I wonder if Charles is still listening, but back in the day when I first got online and I first started doing research, when YouTube was paying me enough to just do research and I could do what I wanted when I woke up in the morning, I would do research on firearms related things. And I started to do research on the firearms laws, the very beginnings of Minuteman University. This would have been like 2008 or something. It wouldn't. It would have been 2010 or 11. And I started to research the why these bans happened, and there was a lot of they were alluding to who owned the semi-automatic rifle import companies, and it was politicians that owned them. And I'm not going to get into it here because I don't want to get this shut down or just go off on too many tangents, but I would certainly like to see, instead of people researching dumbass World War I weapons and World War II weapons and becoming millionaires researching dumb guns that have already been researched a million times, let's research something that can actually be of interest and something that was actually difficult to find online, and maybe would result in some dirty hands with some politicians who started all this shit. But anyway, so let's keep going. So then we have on the 1st of July, so many things. I mean, if I tried to list everything that happens on the 1st of July, it's one of those months where all kinds of things happen. So you're going to see like the beginning of all kinds of laws happen on July 1st. There's a few other months where that happens, but July it's a massive amount of things. But if you look at all the different things, one of the interesting things that happens on July 1st is in 1972, the Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms was, I guess, created. In reality, it already existed. It had been moved from something to the Treasury or whatever. I have a post on it somewhere. Michigan open carry started on the 1st of July. Like I said, though, there's so many of those. There's probably a dozen different instances of state changes, like positive changes for gun laws that start on the July 1st. And then we have from back in the old days when I first started this whole thing, one of the things that we would be aware of was the United Kingdom's gun control that started in 1997 and was much more draconian, is that the right word? Much more like horrible than ours. And of course, we now see the consequences of it is probably the same violence, if not more violence. And then comparatively to other countries that didn't restrict handguns. Anyway, UK is one of those things. I don't follow Europe too much, but let's keep track of when they do things like make guns illegal. We got the 4th of July, and on the same day, our Rock Island Arsenal Museum was established in 1905. That's our second oldest museum. The first one was? Anyone? That's right, the Springfield Museum. So, wait, was it? Or was it now I don't remember. I'm screwing myself up. It was either the Springfield Museum or I don't think it was. I think it was the museum at, what do they call that place? Down the street from Bannerman Castle. West Point. I think the West Point Military Museum might have been the first one. But either way, Rock Island Arsenal was our second military museum, established in 1905, and it still exists. Draconian UK gun control started in 1921 in the modern era. Oh, interesting. So then, because I post this, it probably won't get posted until July, whatever the next week is there. We'll say that Ruger looks like he was born on June 21st, but then passed away on July 6th of 2002. Back when we started this whole thing, Ruger was a much bigger topic of conversation. Today, I don't think people even bother with Ruger since it's been so long since he's brought up the 10-round magazine thing. But then we've got the semi-automatic rifle import ban coming up, the anniversary from 1989 coming up on July 7th. And that's, of course, where, was that Bush? Yeah, Bush stopped the importation of the SKSs and that kind of stuff. And again, that's one of those ones that you'd be surprised at. If what I read on the internet back in those days was true, then it'd make you be pissed. And I haven't seen it since. So I don't know if that means it was fake or if that means that the people that were behind it wanted it scrubbed. Those are back in the day when you could scrub stuff off the internet, I think. anyhow, we got the Alaska Firearms Freedom Act from, when was that from? I guess I didn't put the date in there. That's convenient. And then, who remembers when there was no CCW in like half the states? Well, it was in the 80s, so you had to be a while ago. But I can remember live conversations from 2000 to 2013 where people would say stuff like, we'll never have 50 states with CCW because of Illinois. We'll never have blah, blah, blah because of Illinois. We'll never have blah, blah, blah because of Illinois. Well, guess what happened? July 9th, 2013. Well, Illinois got CCW, became the 50th state, the last state to hold out. And now we have CCW in Illinois. And now we have constitutional carry. I refuse to call it permitless carry. Constitutional carry in 29 states. You're actually we're listening, or Charles is listening. He's one of the people responsible for that whole flood. Imagine how interesting it would be to be one of the 5 dudes that were sitting around at that Five and Diner and that created an organization that just 9 years later would influence the state enough to have the balls to push constitutional carry and then pass it. Blood in the streets and everything was a legit concern back then, because only crazy Alaska and crazy Vermont even had such a thing as constitutional carry. And that drive, that decision, and then the follow through of that, boom, next state. Who remembers what the third state was with constitutional carry? Nobody, because it takes the first state to do it. And then all the other states come along. And now 29 states later, that many states have constitutional carry. Pretty neat. Let's see. Then we've got a bunch of nothing, because I don't have anything in the calendar until the 16th of July. So I'll probably wait on that, so we're not sitting here all night talking about the calendar. Charles says there was 4 people at the Five and Diner. Okay. I think I've shook hands with 3 of you at least, or maybe all 4. All right, so that's gun calendars, and anybody that wants to check that out, thanks to our Patreons, it's available all the time, guncalendars.com. So you know what you're talking about if you go to the range or the gun shop or wherever you might be that you want to bring up something that has to do with guns, or sometimes there's military holidays in there. All right, so now we're going to talk about some of these military interview shows that I listen to, and this one is a pretty interesting one. This is the Team House. So this is a Green Beret and a Ranger, and they interview all kinds of people. This is episode 284 of their show. Theirs is a good show because they typically interview, well, they always are live, but they typically have the people sitting in the room with them in New York City. So it's an interesting conversation. This one is a SEAL who went into dev groups. So he went to SEALs Team 6, and he did all kinds of things you can imagine. Then he found himself in Serbia, I believe, at a party. And the next thing you know, they're knocking on the door. And I think it was 8 months later he got out of jail, or 18 months later he got out of jail. He came back and he lost his trident, and he's started doing mercenary work, and now he's doing some other things. So an interesting conversation for sure. You hear about mercenaries and you hear about legal systems in other countries, but you very rarely get to interview somebody who's, recently had to deal with it. I got to go turn off a fan here that's about to blow up. We're going to throw a commercial up here for something so that you're not sitting here being bored. This will be very loud, by the way. Very loud.
Sorry to bother you, Ripley, but do you happen to know where I might find help designing a logo?
That's easy. Just head over to gearwebsites.com and they can help you out. While you're there, why not check out all the wonderful 2A-related items for sale? Jimmy, put that down.
Thanks again to Foss for making those commercials for us. All right, then we've got Borderland. I've been listening to this one pretty regularly, and this one was interesting. This is a they're not going to play for me. This is a conversation with the former director of ICE, immigration. What does ICE stand for? I can't remember what ICE stands for now. But anyway, immigration. So pretty interesting. Interesting not just because he's saying the stuff that you'd expect, but because of the stuff he wasn't saying. And as a guy who's been involved with it for so long, I thought that was a pretty good one. I'm not stoked about the interview style of Borderland. It's kind of shitty, honestly. I don't like their editing style, but it's good info. So mainly, I don't like that they cut it so freaking short. They try to make them like 40-minute episodes, or at least bring people back for 2 or 3 episodes if you're going to make them 40 minutes. But they could have been talking to that guy a lot longer. Another conversation with a SEAL talking to a SEAL. I don't know. I don't mind listening to SEALs talk to each other, but they definitely were talking about SEAL stuff in this one. So not only are these guys both SEALs, but they kind of did stuff similar. So they had a lot to talk about. Anyway, this is Mic Drop, and this was a SEAL guy from SEAL Team 5. Interesting stories, but I don't know if that one was one of my top favorites or anything. And then we get to Combat Story, and this is another interesting one because this is a guy from the infantry instead of, well, he was also a Green Beret later, but a guy from the infantry. Most of his stories are infantry stuff. So we hear often when they're talking about Afghanistan and Iraq, stories from what people would consider tip of the spear, or the guys going out and doing nighttime operations and stuff. But obviously there's lots of people there doing other things. And this was an interesting look or hear, conversation about some of those experiences. And then, of course, as you go in and do more, somebody who did more than that, hearing the stories where normally we wouldn't get those stories. Then we'll take a look at what we did this week. And we're not doing too bad with time. ICE says Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Thanks, Charles. So I simulcasted the debates. It was just driving me nuts. Somebody was watching the debates and getting like $50 super chat after $50 super chat. And I'm not going to watch the debates while somebody's sitting there making a shit ton of money. So I just went live myself and put my, I couldn't help but putting some, commentary on it. I tried to shut up for most of it though. But I watched CNN, so y'all didn't have to. So thanks everybody that joined us live on that one. Then we chatted about Minuteman University, which started in Charles's living room. So I talked about the origins of that, and we kind of looked through. As I get closer to being financially able to devote time to some of these projects again, I was kind of looking at Minuteman University with the eyes of somebody maybe going in and remodeling a home or something. Like what needs to be done immediately? What did I leave unfinished before? There's so much going on that website. It's such a large project that essentially the last thing I had done with it was attempt to put it into a book, whatever year that was, 2022, I think, at SHOT Show, and have everybody sign that book while I was there. And so a good amount of effort was put into chapterizing, or, chopping up the website into pieces that would be book pages in a book. And that created a bunch of empty pages that like chopped some topics in half, for example, and kind of left some things empty. So anyway, I went through and live tried to do some of that diagnosis, and then at the same time BS a little bit. So we chatted about where Minuteman University came from. Let's see. I've also got a shed I'm trying to put together. So if anybody wants a shed in their backyard, here's a link you can click on, and it shows you my amazing adventures of putting my shed in my backyard. And then one time when we were doing the Daily Gun Show 500 episodes ago, we must have done 9mm in the Bear, which is the sitcom from the 1980s where a little monkey ran around with a 9mm cartridge and they had adventures. And you can't even imagine how many adventures a monkey and a 9mm can have. But that was episode 1203 if you want to go check it out. I guess thinking about Lancelot Link, Secret Chimp, brought back those memories. All right, that's the show. I'm going to try to get another hour and a half worth of work out of today since it's only 10:30. Thank you, everybody, for staying up late and being part of this one. Let's see how many people were listening from where. 18 people over on Twitter, and none of you had chatted at all, which is super weird, but whatever. All these people, George Washington, DJ Woods, Guns and Water, and Ozzy. we're all over here on YouTube, and because they chatted, I can put their names up on the screen. So if you're on the X, you're allowed to chat. You're allowed to be part of an interactive network or interactive internet. That's what it's called, the internet. It's interactive networks, and you don't have to just listen. All right, with that, we're going to wrap this one up. We'll say thanks again for tuning in and watching and listening. And thanks to all the people who listen as a podcast later. We're on all those podcast platforms. Thanks to Podbeam, we can now see how many people are paying attention to the show, and it is impressive. We do thank you. And we ask that if you enjoy what you're listening to, every once in a while, not like every day or nothing, but once in a while, jump over to whatever the platform you are listening to it on, right? Like iTunes or Stitcher or iHeartRadio, whatever it is. And then find our show and give us a thumb up or a heart or a like or whatever that might be. And then go do that for all the stuff you value, because your interaction with those mechanisms are what indicate that we should be recommended to other people. So your influence there, your interaction is literally priceless. We cannot pay for that. That's something that you have to initiate, and we certainly appreciate it when you do that. So do that for our show, and then do it for everything that you value, because it really has a lot of power. And the human being, I can guarantee you, the human being on this end of the internet or this end of the microphone appreciates that, because then we know that there is a human on the other end, and we're not just talking to the wall, which is what I'm actually talking to right now. But I'm talking into it on can I even do this? I think I can do this. If Charles is still out there, I am doing it on... Hold on, how do I turn this thing on now? There we go. My microphone is on this boom, which came from his radio station. It pops up over my laptop, and then this big strong boom, and I keep my mic and my camera on here. So thanks, Charles, for that, and for helping me out a lot with getting me to Gun Rights Policy Conference in 2015. Otherwise, I might have been typical punk jerk worrying about grip angles and red dot optics, trying to sell people on different kind of serrations or other dumbass shit that it matters a little tiny bit, but it don't matter at all if you don't have the rights to do it. So we appreciate all the folks that are out there paying attention to the important shit, and we thank you all for listening. We'll put a couple of commercials on here at the end. Again, if you're a capitalist and you appreciate what we're doing, you'd like to make us be able to do more, essentially, get us back on the road again in a smart way so that we're not going into debt. I'd love to get out there and start experiencing gun shops again, seeing some gun shows, those events that are out there. But really, there's like 4 museums that I really want to get to before I'm not able to anymore. And, we got Gun Rights Policy Conference coming up in San Diego in August or something, September, something like that. There's that GOA thing I've been invited to that costs $2,500 to get to. So if you want to be a capitalist and you want to invest in this stuff, jump over to Patreon, take $20, throw $5 of that at us, take the other 15 and check out things that you value. You're going to find other things on Patreon. Maybe a local store in your area, maybe somebody writing a comic book or something. Maybe there's somebody doing a radio show or making music that you like, and you can support all kinds of people as a capitalist on Patreon. Take that $20 every month, do that 5 times, and once you've spent $100, let me know if that was a waste of money or not, because I put that challenge out there a lot, and I've never had anybody come back and say it wasn't worth $100. If you find things that you value and you participate in them, you're a venture capitalist in the creation of their project. If that's something you value, you've created something that you value. It's really neat. Mention it because it's one of the most interesting ways I've found to enable individuals to do stuff that isn't necessarily mainstream enough to make the big cash, to make the mechanisms work in such numbers that money just flows in. That's certainly possible if we were talking about gardening, or I could put stuff about that dog online and make a bunch of money, but it's definitely harder over here in the gun stuff. So I appreciate the people who support us with the Patreon, who are channel members over on the YouTube, and then a couple of y'all just go straight to PayPal and throw us a couple of bucks each month, buy us a lunch or a cup of coffee or whatever works for you. And again, that allows us to put that effort back into this stuff. All right, we'll end this there and see you tomorrow. We're going to probably dig into, probably not Minuteman University, But we'll dig into another project tomorrow because Tony's doing something. He's not going to be around for Ask Gun questions. So we'll throw one more commercial up here and see you tomorrow.
GearWebsites.com is your source for firearms-based playing cards and books. We also have mugs, shirts, and posters with designs that we've made live. Of course, we have patches. Every Friday is Free Patch Friday. We appreciate your support. Thank you for shopping at GearWebsites.com.
A little dude heard the music and he thinks the show is starting, so he jumped back up here. My little co-host is getting ready to go to bed. Actually, he's getting ready to run all around because he doesn't go to bed until he feels like it. But then we'll throw up, I don't know, this one.
Captain, a vessel approaching.
On screen.
We're being hailed.
Every weekend over at GearWebsites.com, our online store, we have Free Patch Friday. And that means that every order placed on our store on Fridays is going to include at least one free patch. So that's every order with no coupons, no minimum order, no codes needed. You place the order on Friday, and when it arrives to you, it's going to have at least one free patch. Your support means a lot to us, and financial support is critical. So thanks again to the people who keep us online through purchases at GearWebsites.com.
He's looking at himself in the karate video.